Hi, and welcome to the next episode of Sewing a Crossover Apron. Um, I hope you're doing well, and like, subscribe, do all the things you're supposed to do anyway. Um, so what I'm going to be working on right now is figuring out where the pockets should go and how big the pockets should be, or pockets, for the front of the apron. As you can see, I'm wearing the apron right now. Let me show you what it looks like. I'll go a little bit further away. And here it is. Fits right around. It's very flattering, as you can tell. Sweatshirt and multiple layers. So the slit came out just great for the legs. As you can see, the whole apron. It's the whole apron. I love the fabric. I think it's fun. Whatever. It's extra fabric that I can now use. So when I sit down, I'll lay my legs. If you want to take a look, it's pretty cool. Look at that. So I can have the spinning wheel right here. Spinning wheel. Pottery wheel right there. Yay. So anyway, so what I wanted to show you though is sort of part of the process of how do you figure out what you're going to how or what size of pocket's going to go on the front, or how you just sort of work through permutations. I've done this a number of times when I'm designing to go, do I like it this way? Do I like it not like it this way? Blah, 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 blah. Something to keep in mind is it's not permanent. You can always change it down the line. No, that's not an ad for Monster. It's just something to keep me going. It's a very dreary day, so it's kind of like, all I want to do is take a nap. But actually, all I want to do is create. So what I do is I assembled some of the tools that I just use for pottery out on the table here, and my square of fabric. This is going to be like the maximum size I would ever use, width-wise at least. So then I want to figure out lengthwise. I'm also thinking that it would be a good idea for me to double the fabric. Since it's the lightweight fabric, I want it to, it'll stretch a little bit, and it will sort of mold itself to the utensils that I put into it, the tools that I put into it. As you can tell with this, I haven't ironed it. I don't really feel like I need to, because I'm going to throw it in the wash soon enough anyway when I start throwing with it on. So here's a shot of the table. Let's see if I can do this without making you sick to your stomach. There we go. I was hoping that would work. And there we go. So these are the tools that I'm pretty much use all the time. As you can see, these are some throwing ribs. There's some actual coconut shells that they're really good for. They see the different shapes that you can get for the insides of and the outsides of pots and bowls and stuff like that. They're great to shape a rounded floor of a bowl. And metal, which is a cleaning rib and cleaning tool-ish thingy. I also use it for when I'm throwing off the hump, which means that you have a hump of clay and you just throw with the top part of it. You can slice it right off. Found that on a wonderful video that I found online of how to throw off the hump. So I've got a couple sponges. I don't know that I'm going to be wanting to put sponges in my thing because they're too wet. So those are not going to go in. We know that. The tool that will definitely go in will be this. It's called the needle tool. You see what the edge of it looks like. If you can see that. Yeah, it's very sharp. And it's got a great little tip to it. And as you're using it, it's a real basic tool. They have really much nicer ones. Simon Leach has wood-handled ones that are really beautiful. I haven't gotten them. Not yet. So these are some of my other ones that I actually like and use frequently for trimming. If you can see these, with the different ends and edges. They're really basic tools that come with the basic kit that I actually like and continue to use, because why not? And this is the pear, because some people call it the pear trim tool. And it's just because it's shaped like a pear. So those are ones that I definitely use in addition to other trim tools. But I also, this is the wire for trimming, for bringing it off of the wheel, cutting it off the wheel and cutting off the hump. And some of my favorite tools for trimming pottery are these. So my suggestion is, if you're going to be using this apron for, multiple things, let me get you back looking at me so I can see you without you just looking at my mouth. I do suggest that you think about what tools you're going to be using and what the apron is going to be worn for, in order to be sure, to ensure that your tools are going to fit. So if you're using it for gardening, obviously what you want to do is, as you're making this, have your gardening tools. See where on your body you'd like the gardening tools to be, so that while you're overdoing things, you're not squinching yourself, you're not crushing yourself, right? So that's what I'm going to do right now. We're going to explore some of the different options. And here we go. Yeah. All right. So with that exploration, get this lamp out of the way, because it's totally in the way. There we go. I have the size of the sheet that I want. And this is, like I said, the maximum width that I would go. And that's including that I would fold over the edges when I sew it on. My biggest concern, as I mentioned, is that do I use something that's tall like this, or do I double it? My worry is that if I use something that's tall like this, I'm going to put these in and I'm never going to be able to get them out. Unless I fold it over and do 2 layers. So I can sew this edge down, fold this up halfway, and then when I sew it on, and then I do places to put my tools so that they only go down that far, and I'll put them in, see how they stick out the top, so I'd be able to get to them, and I would do little compartments, maybe not that wide. But then what I would also do is on the very top, I would fold over the sides, sew this on, but leave this seam open so that the tools would actually go in next to me. My taller tools could go in the back, right? So if that's the idea, then I do need to make it even shorter than this, but I don't want it so short that they're just going to be falling out as soon as I lean over. So if I make my bottom layer, so if I make my top layer, let's go with the top layer first. So the deepest back ones are going to be, let's go with this depth. The beauty of working with this fabric again is that because it's plaid, I have lines. I could just follow the lines. It makes everything so much easier. So if I'm putting a tool in back here and it goes down to there, that's plenty far enough. See that? All right. And do I really have a lot of tall things I'm going to be using? No, I really don't. I don't throw anything that's gigantic. And I mean, really, when it comes down to it, you're not going to be coming across really gigantic tools with doing this because they become unwieldy. So with that first layer, let's go with, those are the tallest ones I'm going to have at my needle tool, right? And that's it. So if I double my first layer, this is the one that's going to go up against the back of me. That is plenty high, right? So then if I bring this up at a next lower level, I've got double pocketing. I think that's pretty clever. So I can put this in here on the front of it. All my little guys can go in front of my big guys, right? And they'll fit just fine in there. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, how wide do I want it to be? And what's nice is that I've doubled the back side of this so that it'll, the first layer will be plenty to hold up to. Do I really need to do that? I don't think so, but we'll see. So this is going to be turned over, so I need to figure this out. So how much seam allowance do I need? I'm not going to need to, Let me do the edge. Whoa! Don't do what I just did, which is roll your sewing machine. Oh my God. Up and over the stuff that's on your desk. And so here we go. All right. Threading my machine, turn it on. The horrible little LED light that I don't even know why they bothered. Bring my other light behind, and magically now I can see. I'm gonna go up a notch on the camera. There, that's even better. So now I'm going to take my piece of fabric, and I know my top edge just needs to be turned over and sewn down. I can leave the edge raw on the inside, doesn't matter, or cut edge is the whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to press it down with my fingers to create a crease in the fabric, and then sew it straight across, lengthening my stitches all the way, straight across, without stretching the fabric, right? I've got my folded side up so that I don't have to guess as to how far this fold goes. And lock that in and just zip right across it. Here we go. Even though I'm not going to use, whoa, the whole width of this. Oh my gosh, what's going on with my tension? Even though I'm not going to use the whole width, looks like my tension is a little out of whack. I need to make sure that I've just got a seam all the way across. So it's not the prettiest seam, don't care. It's navy, navy end. I think my bobbin thread, it may be black, maybe black. So then I've got this. So I've got that there. This is the front part of the bottom pocket, or the outside pocket, if you will. So I know that that's going to go like that. So I have my little short utensils. In order to be able to use the front and the top, the outside and the back pocket, I need to do my sewing on in one fell swoop, right? Because otherwise, when I sew directly through, it's going to make compartments that are equal. I'm leaving. You'll understand what I mean in a minute here. So that's a good size for these. I can pull those out easily, and they're not going to fall out when I just bend forward. So that's a good size there. I'm going to just, so that I know where everything is, quote unquote based. Come on. AKA just tack it into place. This bobbin is terrible. Okay. On both sides, so that I don't have to mess with it moving around and shifting and things. So this is all experimental. I'm not planning on it staying this exact width. Hold on to my thread as I pull it out so it doesn't cinch it all in. Get rid of my extras. All right, there I'm all trimmed up. Get rid of my extras on this end so that I'm not fighting with extra thread everywhere. So there's the first outer layer. This is how it's going to look when I'm facing, when somebody's facing me. And I've got my little tools that can go in here. This is great. So now, how deep do I want the back pocket, right? Let's move this back a little bit so I have more room. I don't want it too deep. So if it goes down to the bottom, I want it about that deep. See, you getting what I'm doing? So maybe what I want to do is only make it as tall as, and I'll just double the fabric in back, as that. That way these guys can go in the front, and then I can put taller things in the back, and that's great. Now I'm gonna have to make sure that this is not so high on my chest that these guys are poking me when I'm leaning over. So that's another consideration to have. But first, since I know that that's really the height that I want, I'm going to tack that down to keep it in place and just do a seam right across it. Now, I turn it over, so I'm working from the back. And lining up my print, which makes, like I said, makes everything easier. Couple steps forward. Oh my gosh, the tension on this is absolutely, tension on my head is absolutely horrible. All right. Don't know what's going on, but works fine on heavy fabric, but it feels like the tension for the bobbin is actually not enough. And that may be because I'm using this. Oh no, it's because it came out. Oh, good Lord. Well, that's because there was no tension on the bobbin. Well, there you go. I'm surprised it's actually working as well as it was. So yet again, little bit of looking into what the heck is going on with my machine can show you a lot. So there we go. So I just wanted to base it anyway, so it doesn't matter if it's perfect, blah, blah, blah. So I've got now basically two pockets. So I've got an outer pocket, and then when I put it on, I've got a outer pocket and then a back pocket, if you will. Let me test how far things are gonna go in. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So now, where do I want to attach it? And how wide is it gonna be? It's not gonna be that wide. Or is it? Do you think I would use it that wide? I don't think I would use it that wide. The other question is, so I have ribs. Am I gonna use these for ribs? I don't think I would. Would I use a rib and then stick it back in here? I might. Well, that'll work on those outer pockets. So that'll just determine how wide of seams I will do. And I would do a rib on the outside, maybe just, I don't need them. I think I'm gonna keep this just to trimming tools. So, how wide do I want this? I'm gonna turn down one edge as I sew it on, and then I'll top stitch the other one. How about right here? What if this tool goes in here? Is that weird? I don't know that I would actually use this for the taller tools much. What I would worry about is that if I'm using my needle tool, I'm going to be stabbing myself, right? And we don't want that. So if I put my needle tool in here, it's going to poke through the bottom, which is fine with me, but I just don't want it to poke me. So there we go. That's actually pretty good. The pocket's low enough, so it's not going to get in my way. People with different bodies, aka females, or anyone with different proportions than me, will want to put it in different places. So if I just eyeball it from here to here is where that's going. If I put a level across, that's about the amount of space that I want. Oopsies. Let's go with that to that. This inside. This is so technical, right? So I'm going to about there, and that's how wide this is going to be. To right there. So I'm going to turn over the edge. Rid of the extra. There, that looks good. Feels good. Yeah. So now I'm going to take off my apron, and I'm going to put this actually on it. So I'm wearing a sweatshirt, which makes this very, very sticky. And what I'm going to do is, so that I'm not fighting with everything that I have on this table now, I'm going to clean up my space a little bit as we go. and then we'll put the pocket on. So it seems like that's going to be a great place for it. Now, what did I mention earlier? I mentioned that this is not like end all be all, right? Since I've made this and I'm the one who's putting this on, I can take it off and reposition it, resize it, redesign it as I wish. I had an aha moment when I was working at Lowe's in the Home and Garden Center. I was working with a woman who's a master gardener. I don't know why we got on the subject, but she was like, so I just don't understand why people can't grasp that when you plant something, if it doesn't seem to be thriving in the place you planted, just move it. And it was funny because I was apparently one of those people. Because when she said that, very simple concept, right? Well, if it's not thriving there, then just move it. I went, duh, what? It never occurred to me that once you put it in the ground, you could move it. Now, why would that not occur to me? I have no idea. But it just seemed like, oh, it's planted. I have to leave it there. And if it dies because it wasn't the right place for it. So it changed my whole way, like my whole approach to gardening, because suddenly I was like, oh, things are not in a permanent place if I don't want them to be in that place. I love that freaking idea. That's absolutely brilliant. So I'm going to right now tack down my sides. Now that my sewing machine is working better. Now, why am I doing this? Because when I put it on, I don't want to be fighting with the fabric, right? And now that oh yeah, I have tension on both the top and the bottom, so everything's going much better. My stitches are even. They're pulling through so that you don't see loops on one side. It's simple adjustments. Just you gotta pay attention and actually make them. I'm going to actually use this opportunity to sew the top across this. That's actually going to be permanent stitching. Now that I know where things are actually going, I can remove my basting, my funky stitches. All I do is I just grab a loop. You can do it with your scissors if you want, and pull. You just pull from one side, and theoretically, every once in a while, get an end, pull, and the thread will just come out. That's why I use long stitches, especially when I do this sort of thing where I'm tacking it together. That's the other thing, is if you put stitches in, they don't need to stay where they are necessarily. Don't be afraid of pulling stitches out, pulling whole rows of stitches out. If you don't like how it looks, pull it out, iron it, do whatever you need to do, and go back to it and try it again. There, that is my pocket. I like it. It looks fine. That on the back side looks just great. It's overlapped on the back here, overlapped on the underside here with raw edge, and it's just fine because that's how I'm going to be using it. Now, let's take my apron, set it down. Next step is to place it on the apron where I want it. Now, I've said how many times, I don't need to pin anything. Well, I'm going to pin. Because in this case, when I'm actually setting something where I want it, I am not going to mark. You can mark it. You can take a marker if you really wanted to. And so I know I had it further down, and it was about that distance from either side. And then you can put it on where it's marked, but I'm not going to do that because I don't want to mark up the fabric, and it doesn't have to be exact. But what I am going to do, so this is where I'm going to have it. So I set it on here, right? But just really tack it down with a few pins right on this edge. And I'm not doing anything more than just popping it in just so that I can see that that's where I want it. It seems like it's even left to right pretty much. All right, good. So now I'm going to sew this side upside down. So I'm going to put the right sides, front sides together, but I'm taking this from here, keeping this here, and I'm going to flip it over. Now this, I'm going to pin into place. Some people pin this way because they're sewing, or pin this way, so that as they're sewing, they take the pins out parallel with it, because people freak out, they don't want to sew over a pin. I pin this way, coming from the, sorry, I'm blocking it. I pin from the right or from the left, doesn't really matter to me. I'm right-handed, so I pin from the right. I hold things together from the side. Now, how do you pin stuff together so it's not moving all over? Jam it down till you hit the hard surface and then bring it up and through. You'll get better at it as the more you do it. If you pinned a billion things. Top, bottom. This is easier with the actual mat underneath, but I've got a good wood table underneath that I can dig into. There we go. So I'm going to sew right along here, right along this edge on the outside of that, the sewing that I already did. So you won't even see this first set of seams, right? So we're going to do that right now. I'm just still on a straight stitch. I'm not doing any decorative stitches on this piece. I could if I wanted to really zhuzh it up, but I don't feel the need to. So sewing from the very, very top all the way down. Oh, and trick. I got a trick for you. The pedal. Pedals tend to move around a lot. They're a pain in the butt to try to keep track of. Hard side of Velcro. Because when you're on a carpet, you put it down, that sucker stays in place. Right? Pretty brilliant. I thought of it one day when I was like, oh, this stupid thing keeps on moving and blah, blah, blah. It slides on my carpet and oh, wait. Hard side of Velcro. So 1 step forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. And I want to really make sure this is stable and a good seam. So I'm letting the foot pull it, get to the end, a couple back stitches, a couple forward stitches, and I'm done. Pull my fabric out carefully, and with allowing the thread long ends. So now you notice I went right over those pins and I didn't have to take them out as I went. People do like 2 stitches and they pull out the pin, 2 stitches and they pull out the pin, and I'm like, no, just frickin' sew over the pin, especially when you've got like 40 pins and you're doing the whole like periphery of something or whatever. It's like, oh God, it's exhausting. So what did I do? I trimmed the outside longer, shorter, and then I pull from the back, pull that through, just tug it a little bit and leave these longer on the bottom back side. And what that does is it pulls those threads through, sort of locks them through to the back side. Now, this one, I can't do the same thing, can I? I cannot do the same thing. So what do I need to do? I need to fold this over, and I'm going to end up top stitching it. Because I could, I have no idea how I would do that. There is a way to do it, and I've never figured it out. But what this does is it gives me one really great, stable seam on the right that gets it on here. And then I'm just simply going to top stitch the bottom because the bottom's already folded over. I'm going to bring this over, but I do need to fold this back, right? So I'm going to choose a line here. So I don't want to be able to see the stitches that are here. So I'm going to choose this line here. I'm going to fold it with my fingers, and I'm just going to do pressing with my fingers. You could take this over to the iron, and you are welcome and encouraged to actually iron it. But since I basted it, this actually works with this very lightweight fabric, and it's cotton. So pressing with my fingers works just fine for what I'm working on. Because when I top stitch, I'm going to top stitch right along the edge. And that's all I need to have it turned around for. Now, Word to the wise, word to my peoples. This is now not even. It's shifted over to one side. And that doesn't make me happy. It's all wonkalicious. Well, what am I going to do? I'm going to take it out. I don't like where it is. So, and maybe I did that on purpose. Did you just freak out when I did that? Oh God, he's tearing the fabric. No, I'm not. I'm just tearing the stitches out. I've got this really nice canvas underneath, so I can actually pull against it and just tear those stitches out. You don't ever want to do that with really lightweight fabric on lightweight fabric because you'll destroy your fabric. You don't want to do that. So maybe I'm going to change the way I do this. We're going to go over here where I have an iron already set up. So we're going to go over and I'm going to do a quick iron on this. So I've got my steam iron on, set on hot because I'm working with cotton, so I can do that, no problem. I'm going to fold this down, get a nice folded edge, just like I had, and I'm going to steam it. My iron is heating up. I'm going to press it down. Well, iron continues to heat up. There we go, it's going now, better now. So I'm going to do that on this side as well. And I'm going to press it. First way was harder to really determine where. There we go, we got steam. I have it on the highest steam setting just because it sets that cotton really easily. Creates those seams very easily. And then we'll do this again on this side. And then we'll come back over and actually sew it on just straight around. We'll pin it and sew it, and we'll be done in 5 minutes. All right, so there we go, nice and hot iron now again. It's an auto off iron, so it's a nice safety measure, but it's kind of pain in the butt when you're working on a long-term project. You get used to just, and it, as you can tell, it heated up very quickly, right? So now we're gonna go back over to our work spot, and I have this nice piece of fabric that's ironed down that I'm now going to pin. So pinning, I recommend this. Look at that awesome thing. Simplest thing in the world. I've had it for God knows how long, very long time. It's magnetic. Magnetic pin cushions are just fabulous and make the world go around so much easier. You don't have to stick pins, anything to dull them. Every time you use a pin, you're dulling it slightly. So in this case, you just set it on there and anything metal holds onto there. I've got a bobbin on here. I've got upholstery pins. I've got darning needles. I've got a whole bunch of stuff. So let's try this again and center it. Pull it further down, center it. And now I'm gonna actually pin it. So I do pin from the right, like I mentioned, but I'm not pinning from the green fabric first. I'm pinning on the blue fabric, the very edge, going in at an angle, going under, and then coming up half an inch further away. Making sure I'm square the entire time. It's very easy to start pinning and like everything goes a little wonky. So this one I'm putting in at an angle because I'm going to be coming down and going around a corner. Now I'm going to do the other side. Why, you ask? Aren't you doing the bottom? Well, a very good reason I'm not doing the bottom is because if I do the bottom and it's off a little bit, if I do the bottom next, I'm going to have to adjust, blah, 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 take more time. So I do both sides first, this one at an angle at the corner, and then I do the bottom, because I'm really only going to need one in the middle and the bottom. There we go. And then that's nice. I'm not stretching the fabric over it. I'm not forcing it to go anywhere. Love magnetic pin cushions. Now let's do this again. Learn from my, not mistakes necessarily, But, you know, that was not the end of the world. It was not a big deal. I just pulled it out and redid it because I put it on there and I went, it's way out of center. So this is more in center. It's not perfectly centered, but you know what? It's good enough for what I'm doing and for what I'm using it for. Alrighty, get all my fabric up where I want it so that it's easy to move because I'm going to be going this way. All right, and I'm going to, actually, let's do it. Let's start on this edge. Start it. I'm going to put it right so that the edge of the fabric is inside the little window that I have in the foot. And seriously, there it is. A couple of stitches forward, right to the edge, and then come on machine, come on. So, and encourage my machine to actually do its job and sew. This pin, see, it was in so close, the head was in so close, I was going to hit it. So looking ahead, I made sure that I pulled the head back, and that's as far as I want to go with my needle, because I'm going to go directly around the corner, take the pin out, pop it on the magnetic pin cushion. Now I'm going to put my needle into the fabric to hold its place. That way I'm going to put up the foot, rotate my fabric. I don't lose my spot. I don't add all this, you know, angst about where's my next stitch going to be. I can stitch sideways even because it's not quite to the edge that I want. Keep it where I want, and then I'm going to proceed from there. There we go, and I just went around the corner. Now remember, I'm letting the fabric, or the sewing machine pull the fabric. I am not pulling the fabric. It may look like I am, but I'm not. I'm simply guiding it to go where I want it to go. And I get right up to my edge, leave my needle in, pull my pin out, turn my fabric yet again. So I'm going the opposite direction, smooth it all down. It is actually where I want it to be this time. And we continue sewing. Now I could reinforce my corners if I wanted to by 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, 2 stitches forward, 2 stitches back. I have a little button, that's a reverse button on here, so if you see me use that, that's what I'm using. Some of them have a lever or whatever. Whatever works. Come on, wake up. Come on, machine. There we go. Oh, the electronics on this machine are just crapping out. So there we go. Ta-da! I have a beginnings of a pocket. Now I'm going to make all of the slots for the pocket. I had 2 options. I could make the back section have a set of slots, then fold up the front section and put those as a set of different types of or sizes of slots. So what I would have done is I would have sewn this down and across with this top flap down. I would have done my ridges through, right? Taking out all my pins, making sure all my pins are out so I don't stab myself with pins. Oh, there's a hiding pin. And then I would have folded this up, sewn it around the outside, and then chosen which one of the back ones I was going to do if I wanted wider. But I want them to be the same, so I'm not really being too overly picky about my slots. I just want to make sure they're not ginormous, but that they are also not too small. So there's a nice medium to be had to find. Tug on the back. Tug, just a slight tug, just enough to pull that through. Leave these a little bit longer on the back, and you're never going to have your thread come out that way. So now let's do this. We're going to figure out, we're just going to go line by line. My little tools are right here. So I've got a big tool for the back, but that's a double tool. I don't need to worry about that. All my tools for the back are pretty narrow. So if I do this, I could go and I can take my marker, but I'm only gonna do little teeny ticks, and they're gonna be right at the very top in my seam because my thread is dark. I'm gonna go on that line. Come on, there it is. Going to go on this line. You want to give yourself extra space. If it's too narrow, it won't go up and around. Oh my gosh, this is dried out. The fine tip is dried out. I don't want a big mark. There, dot is big, it's enough. And let's do another one. Same size. Another one. I could measure them if I wanted to, but they don't need to be exact. Do a smaller one. Let's do a larger one, a wider one. Or we'll split. And I could always put multiples in the wider ones. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 narrow, and then I'm just going to split the difference between these two, eyeball it, right to the middle. And that's what I'm going to do. Now, am I going to obsessively go down to the other side? If I didn't have lines already on my fabric, yes, I would. I would figure out how far this, I would take a tape measure and then measure it from the bottom and then measure from the bottom and figure out where they are on the tape measure, then make it the identical there. But I already have the lines because I have a plaid. So I'm just gonna pop this in here. I'm gonna go from top to bottom on each one of these because it's just easier that way to follow, figure out what line I'm on. I'm gonna go from the top seam. I'm leaving that little flap at the top as a flap at the top. It just makes things easier to get in than if it's completely pressed all the way down. I have found in the past. And I'm just gonna follow that line. There we go. Making sure my outer piece is not being pushed down and made funky. There we go. 1. Now I'm just going to pull it further in and I can start the next one without having to cut blah, 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 blah. As long as I give myself a little bit of space, a little extra, go back 1 stitch. Make sure I start at the bottom of that and let's go. Come on. That did not work as well as it should have. Sewing machine can get very, very, very annoying. So I think what I'm going to do to make sure that this outer pocket doesn't get pulled down every single time I do this, I'm going to put a pin in it on the other side. So now I pull it back a little further, give myself a little slack on that thread, and start right here. Come on. Sewing machine. Come on. There we go. I fixed that. That was going back. There. So now I'm going to move my pin over so that I pull the top layer up, pin it down so that when I go over it, it does not bunch up at the bottom. This one. Come on, back up. There we go. It goes always too far. Better. Still pushing the fabric down. There we go. There's the little cushiony pouches. And the last one I marked right here. There we go. And we're just going to zip right down the middle here. That was the best one so far. There, and we're done. Pull that out. Snip. And we have successfully created a pocket for little tools. Looky there. This will fit all of them. I can put them in the front, or I can put them in the back. And it's large enough. They're all large enough for this larger tool. So I know that my little guys that I use will fit beautifully in the front pouches. All right, so I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining me and having fun working on this stuff. Oh my gosh, where are you? Hi. And I just hope you have a wonderful day. Treat everybody nice around you if you can. Oh my God, sorry. I'm trying to adjust. And take it easy on yourself, take it easy on other people, and take a big breath in when you have that sort of reaction, and just be like, okay, now I can react, all right? Have a great day. Put more love out in the world. There's not enough love. Bye.